What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Drew. This is a little bit different of a shot for me normally. As you can see up here, I'm sitting on the ground. I'm still trying to get going for the day, but I wanted to make a little video. I don't normally do these like sit down chat kind of videos, so I wanted to make something a little different going into 2024. Wanted to go ahead and give it a shot. As you can hear, I'm also losing my voice a little bit, which is fantastic. So I'm going to give you an overview of the kind of year that I've had first year in music production. And then after that, I'm going to go over three, I think, super important things that I learned in my first year doing music production full time as my only job. So we're going to start at the beginning of the year, which was honestly like the roughest part for me. I had the roughest month of the year was actually January 2023 as far as money. Just for complete transparency, I need to bring in about $2,000 a month to meet my like paying the bills money from my half. I have a wife named Erin and a 2-year-old son named Micah. They're awesome and super supportive. You know, I do feel like responsible for pulling my half of the weight of our finances. So the $2,000 a month is how much I need to bring in bare minimum. It's like paying the bills and getting basic groceries money. So a good thing and a bad thing was January was the only time I didn't meet that amount. But starting off the year of my quote first year full time in January with not meeting the amount needed was not great for the ego and the going into the year. I think I made some bad choices, which was I kind of just expected the work from the previous years to just continue coming through like I had, and I took for granted the consistency of a regularly paying job. So I didn't think about like the fact that even when I'm working a lot, getting a lot of clients in, that I still need to be doing my part on getting new clients in the door as I'm finishing up other projects. I need to be doing the outreach part, making content for, outreach purposes. I need to be having conversations, going to shows, talking with people, hitting up bands, connecting with, different artists around the country via the internet or just by being in a place and, linking up for coffee or lunch or something. So January was kind of rough. I got through it though, and with great help of my wife and patience from my wife. Moving into February is when I started doing a little bit better, getting a little more consistent. I set up a couple instances of some consistent income. I have a retainer with a church that I attend, that they pay me a certain amount of money every single month. If they need tracks made, I make them tracks custom for their services. They're a smaller church, and so a lot of tracks don't necessarily work for their size of congregation. So they're like a smaller 100 to 200 size church, and a lot of tracks are made for like your big mega 1,000-person churches, and that doesn't really translate a lot. So I make tracks specifically for those size services for that church, which has been pretty fun and cool. And there are some times where I'm making a ton of tracks, and there's some months where I'm making not a lot, but getting that consistent income every month has been really, really nice. And then another thing is I have an artist named Noah Black from Charlotte who I work with. He and I have an agreement on a monthly mixing retainer. He pays me a monthly fee, and he sends me a song every month, and I mix it, and it's a discounted rate for him because it's a monthly retainer. It keeps him consistent on releasing music and keeps him consistent on being able to not have to worry about what he's going to do. He can just write consistently and send me the songs and stems that he wants me to mix, and then I knock it out in a couple days and shoot it back to him mix and master. I vocal edit a little bit for him every now and again as well. But shout out to Noah. You should go check out his music. It's really cool. Between those two things, I set up a really good baseline month to month as far as my income. So it helped me not have to worry about bringing quite as many clients in to meet that $2,000 mark. So that was nice, but it didn't mean I didn't need to bring no clients in. It wasn't enough to meet the monthly that I needed. So finishing the first quarter of the year, I was feeling pretty good. I started journaling that first quarter of the year a little bit, which was really nice to help me get just some thoughts out on a page. I found an entry from March where I was talking about how January was a struggle and February and March were good, but I was very stressed about the inconsistency of the income, of the work that I was getting, I was getting really weird jobs at that time. A lot of the mixes and stuff were just like artists and projects that didn't care about their project. They were very hobbyist, and which I'm fine with if that's your thing, but like I really am trying to work with artists and projects who like really care about their music. Not even in like they want to do it full time thing, but they just take their music projects like really seriously. That's kind of people that I want to work with, and I wasn't necessarily getting those kinds of projects. But I noticed in this entry that I was talking about in March that I made that I was starting to get some more projects, some more clients, get more excited. And then we move into the second quarter of 2023, which is where I feel like I started understanding that I needed to treat what I was doing more like a business rather than just like me vibing at my house and making music. It's something that I understood and I had some stuff in place for before I went into this full-time year, but I really felt like whenever I started in the beginning of 2023, a lot of this just started going out the window, and I started being like, all right, well, I don't need all this structure now because I don't have to worry about a job and I can just sit down every morning and work. And that's not the case at all. I really needed some business structure to keep track of projects, to keep track of who owed me what as far as money goes, as far as if I was sending out stems for vocal tuning, if I wasn't doing it, or if I was sending it out to mastering and I was in charge of the project, like where stuff was in the project track. And then also just like, who have I talked to? Who are some people that might be interested in working with me? Who are some people that I might be interested in working with that I haven't spoken to yet? The whole, outreach part and all of that. And just like having a place to put all of that information, and then also just scheduling out my day. Whenever I don't have like a structured day, I tend to, like a lot of people, be extremely lazy and I want to sleep in, or I want to just meander about, watch some anime, read some books, whatever. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things as long as you build in time for them. I want to give a special shout out to 2 books that actually I got around this time that really helped me hone in and kind of focus on making my business better. The first one I want to give a shout out to is Make Time by Jake Knapp and John Zeratsky. This book, I talked about it in my 40 books that I read, or all the books that I read in 2023. This was my number 1 nonfiction book that I read this year. This is the book that helped me learn how to structure my day, how to get organized as far as time management, being more productive. And also, like, another thing that I didn't realize was like, you get so work obsessed and you get so obsessed with like trying to finish all your projects that you start not making time for things like yourself or your family, or hobbies, things like that, things to like pull you away from the work so that you can refresh yourself and come back to work like ready to go. And this book definitely helped me fix a lot of that stuff. I'm still like working on some of that, but this book definitely helped me get at least headed down the right path as far as those things go. And then the other book, as far as organization and getting my projects organized, is Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte. This book is a lot about offloading your mind as far as the information that you consume. And like, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and like I said, I read a lot of books, and being able to capture that information, put it in a place, make it searchable so that when I need to get back to that information, I can easily access it via my notes app and find it when I need it, rather than forget about it and need it at a time when I can't remember, what I read or what I listened to, or even projects. If I need to check on a project status, or check on, like, pull up a mix to show somebody, or beats that I've done, or in a specific genre, or things like that. This book helped me get organized in order to have that on the ready, at hand at all times, and ready to go, instead of forgetting stuff or fumbling around and trying to find, something that I made 2 years ago and I can't remember where it's at because it's deep in the ether of my folder somewhere. All of that kind of happened in the second quarter of the year, April, May, June, kind of summer vacation kind of time of year. And then the third quarter is when I really started to get focused and really started to apply the things that I was reading and apply some stuff from other books I was reading, and really get my daily schedule just like honed in, and I don't know, feeling like an adult, and like I was actually running a business rather than just flailing around every day trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So I started getting better. I started, pushing the content. I also around this time started really pushing my podcast, the Home Studio Hangout podcast, which I do with my friend Josh. If you've never checked it out, I would love it if you would check it out. It's just two guys who are trying to do this music production thing full time. We just interview people that we think are cool, and we talk about our journeys. We talk about their journeys. We kind of learn from each other. We've had some super fun guests on. Around this time in the third quarter of the year, I started pushing that really hard. This is July, August, September of 2023. I started pushing this really hard, started getting some really great guests. We started seeing some traction on the podcast. We've been going for a little bit, but this is the first time where I feel like the podcast has started coming into its own. We started getting recognized for some sponsors, things like that. And so the content stuff started really coming into play around this part of the year, where I noticed that the more I produce content, the more I put out there, the more inquiries I would get on my website, musicbydrew.com. Check it out if you haven't, and hit me up for an inquiry. But I haven't really ever seen such a input and output related thing when it comes to like the music industry. One of the books I read this year was called $100 Million Leads by Alex Hormozi. And he talks about, in that book, finding the place where that you can input a thing and get a consistent output of a thing. So like his instance in the book was, he knows that he can cold call X amount of times and get X amount of clients based on X amount of calls, which is really interesting. So for me, it turned into, I started seeing like, if I get, we'll say like 2,000 to 3,000 views across platforms, I would get about an inquiry to 2 inquiries per 2,000 to 3,000 views across all platforms. So for me, that's an input I can control. That's a thing that I can control. That is, if I put out content that is good, engaging, informative content that I think is, interesting or fun or cool in some aspect, and I keep doing that, I will continue to get inquiries for that. Another place where I talked about this was on my podcast episode with my friend Seth Goodwin, who runs the YouTube channel Velvet Ear. And he was saying that he gets like 90% of his projects from YouTube, because he shows what he does on YouTube and people see what he does and they're like, I want that. I want him to do that for me. So I'm going to hit him up, and then they talk about it.
With YouTube, it's a lot slower, but when somebody does follow, when somebody does like, it means a lot more. So like I have 25,000 TikTok followers, and I think I'm just now getting to like 5,000 YouTube subscribers.
Yeah.
I get 99% of my jobs from YouTube. I get almost barely from Instagram or TikTok.
I started implementing kind of those two ideas, the YouTube idea from Seth and the input output idea from Alex Hormozy, and kind of crushed it into like, I will create the content and do the input to get the output, which is a conversation with somebody who might be interested in doing some work with me. You know, people still get a vibe from you just from watching some content from you. I say all that to say I started really implementing that into this third quarter of the year, and I started seeing some returns on that, which has been really, really great. And it set me up for a stronger end to 2023, I think, than I expected. I think near the end of this quarter, I started bringing in more than the needed amount, which was super helpful in the back half of the year, because December is kind of slower in the music industry. At least for me, January and December have been like traditionally the slowest times of the year. So third quarter of the year ends and I'm feeling pretty good. We're moving into, like holiday season, last quarter of the year, October, November, December. Generally like super, super busy in multiple different aspects, because we have the holidays, we have family time, we have, projects are all trying to get finished so that they can release in like end of November or get their project out before the end of the year in early December. So it was very, very busy. I think it got handled well. I started, finishing the year, realizing what I realized a little bit before when I started reading Make Time, which is like, it got so busy that I started neglecting the family stuff a little bit more. And, coming to the end of the year now, I think a big thing for next year is going to be me really honing in and focusing on family time in certain times of the week. And obviously there needs to be a time for work and focused work and things like that. But making time for a family has to also be just as important as, getting your work done and doing the work. So what are the 3 things that I learned in my first year as a full-time music producer? Well, number 1, keep your overhead as low as possible. And by overhead, I mean like, what does it cost you to run your business? Especially in the beginning of the year, I got my overhead down to $100, meaning with subscriptions that I needed to pay, like my Pro Tools subscription and things like Dropbox. And, if you use the Slate subscription, things like that. At the beginning of the year, I could run my business off of about $120. So per month, I only needed to bring in $120 for the business to exist, which was really, really good, because that allowed me to not have to stress about the business just failing and me not being able to pay for stuff. So keeping your overhead as low as possible. This is also like cost of living. Make sure your bills aren't super high. Like I only had to bring in $2,000 a month, which for some people might be a lot. Other people, they'd be like, how do you live off of, that much money? Well, I mean, one, that's only my half of the money, but like, we still don't have a lot of stuff. We don't pay for a lot of stuff. Like, we have our basic bills, but we try really hard to like not overspend or overdo our budgets when it comes to groceries or eating out or buying excess things. And we try really hard to like not spend as much money as we possibly can, especially because we know going into 2023 that it was gonna be a stressful year with me going into this new area of life. So number 1, keep your overhead as low as possible, and that'll help relieve a lot of the financial pressure on you to exist month to month. The second thing I learned is to be a consistent and continual learner. Self-educate yourself. If I hadn't read these 2 books, I don't know if I would have made it in 2023. Just based off of the trajectory of how everything was going. And I may have, but based on the trajectory of what I knew and how things were going, I would have probably burned out pretty quickly going into the second half of the year if I hadn't picked up these 2 books and learned how to better organize myself and better set aside my schedule. So the continuing education thing has been really huge. And like I said, I've referenced like a bunch of other books already in this video, but I also want to give a special shout out to two podcasts that have been very, very influential for me. The first one being the Six Figure Creative Podcast. It's a very good podcast for creative entrepreneurs. It's just good creative freelancer business knowledge, solopreneur knowledge, if you will. And then the other one I want to shout out is Deep Dive with Ali Abdaal. A lot of you might know Ali Abdaal. You might have seen him on YouTube. He's a YouTube creator with about 5 million subscribers. This is his book, Feel Good Productivity. He's been super influential as far as his podcast because he's been interviewing a lot of different business people, a lot of people in different aspects of business and solopreneuring, bigger businesses, people building like web companies. But what's been really interesting is how much I can learn from everyone. The guy running a software as a service company, like how he structures his day could actually be super helpful for me. Or this other guy who's got this big like agency, maybe like a graphic design agency, like how he hires people helps me like learn how to interact better with other freelancers that I might hire to do things like vocal tuning or mastering or drum edits or things like that. So both of those podcasts have been really big influences on me and have been a really big part of my continuing education throughout this year, in tandem with like, you know, reading a lot of books and listening to a lot of other podcasts and audiobooks and all that kind of stuff. If you want to deep dive onto all the books that I read this year, I actually made a video about that. I'll put that up here if you want to check that out. If keeping a low overhead was a thing that was able to get me started and going, then the continuing education part was the thing that helped me push through and actually start thriving in this year instead of burning out and falling apart halfway through the year. The third thing that I think was absolutely massive for me this year was finding the ability to keep some sort of consistency throughout month to month. So like I said, in 2022, I set up some monthly retainers that moved into me in 2023, and those things saved my butt. However that needs to look for you, I think that if you're in a creative business, finding a way to create some sort of monthly recurring revenue is going to be the thing that gives you this baseline that helps kind of in tandem with the lowering your overhead thing. It helps you create a sense of consistency from month to month. So I'm thankful for the church that hires me, thankful for Noah that, you know, gives me a monthly retainer. That's awesome. That's actually something that I'm looking into doing more in 2024 is bring on a couple new monthly retainer clients for mixing. So just to kind of reiterate what I do. So for a monthly fee, I get 1 to 2 songs from a client and I will mix those songs every single month, knock it out. We go through like 3 revisions max. And yeah, I think it's a really great deal. It's a way, especially in the current state of output, to be able to write constantly. And then when you have a song that you like, you can just shoot it over. I can knock out the mix. You'll have super high quality stuff and you can drop it the next month. I've also had a lot of my mixes and masters placed on a lot of different Spotify playlists, a lot of different recognition, worked with IPs like VeggieTales and a bunch of other cool projects. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to hit the website www.musicbydru.com or check the link in the description. But moving into next year, that is something I want to invest a little bit more time in, is the monthly retainer mixing model. I think it's going to be, you know, a big game changer for me and other people that try it. I think, you know, other people should definitely try it. I had to find the right first person to try it with. So shout out to Noah for being a guinea pig for me in that. But I think that if it's something that, you know, you or I could get, it would help a lot in lowering the stress that we have from month to month, because there's a little bit more consistency there. So yeah, this video's been a little weird, a little different, sitting in the floor and in front of my books and stuff and my chopper. Let me know if you guys like this. I probably want to try to do this style of video maybe a little more often. If it's something you guys like and just sitting down and chatting about stuff, maybe I'll do it a little more often than that. I might try to do this once a quarter, this kind of like check-in video once a quarter. And we can like go through the goals and, you know, see how I'm doing on all those aspects and give you updates on how the business is going and things like that. But yeah, let me know if that's something that you would be interested in the comments below. I hope you can also learn from my experience. That's what these are really for. If you want to check out all those books that I read, I'm going to put the video for that right here. So please go check that out. And thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And I will see you in the next one.